Thanks for watching our video on Oregon lease and landlord tenant laws. Landlords need to be familiar with state lease laws to manage their property well. To help you do that, here are some important landlord tenant laws in the Beaver State. First, let's talk about the lease agreement, which is the foundation of the landlord-tenant relationship. This is a legally binding contract between a landlord and tenant that outlines all rules and terms of the rental relationship. The most common type of lease, often called a standard lease agreement, is a one-year, fixed-term contract. In addition to the basic terms of the lease, Oregon leases must include a lead-based paint disclosure and pamphlet for all properties built before 1978. If the rental unit has any carbon monoxide-emitting devices, for example, a water heater, fireplace, furnace, gas stove, or dryer, a carbon monoxide disclosure must be attached to the lease agreement.
Next, let's talk about key Oregon landlord-tenant laws. There are no statewide limits on security deposits, but in Portland, the security deposit may not exceed 50% of the rent amount. The security deposit must be returned within 31 days of the end of the tenancy. Landlords must give at least 24 hours notice before entering the property for non-emergencies. Any late fees must be discussed in the lease agreement and can only be imposed after rent is at least 4 days past due. Late fees can be a flat fee or a percentage fee, but they must be reasonable. Oregon landlords may require tenants to get renter's insurance, but this requirement and the amount of coverage needed must be disclosed before the lease is signed. Low-income tenants are exempt and cannot be required to get renter's insurance. Return payment fees must be discussed in the lease and cannot exceed $35. In Oregon, periodic leases automatically become month-to-month leases if the landlord does not provide 30 days notice and the tenant remains in the property. Month-to-month leases can be terminated with 30 days notice from either party. Oregon has statewide rent control that sets a rental increase cap and heightened requirements for evictions. Landlords cannot increase rent by more than 7% plus inflation annually.
Landlords must keep units in a habitable condition and make repairs as needed. Tenants should notify landlords of any needed repairs or maintenance. Tenants in Oregon have specific rights, including the right to withhold rent if the landlord fails to make necessary repairs within 7 days of receiving written notice of the issue. Retaliation by the landlord against tenants is strictly prohibited. If a tenant fails to pay rent or violates the lease agreement, the landlord may be forced to start the eviction process. When doing so, landlords must strictly follow Oregon law and can never resort to self-help eviction methods, such as changing locks or shutting off utilities. Congratulations! You're now ready to create an Oregon lease and manage your Oregon rental unit. While Oregon has some complex lease laws, our lease automatically includes all required disclosures and gives you state assist tips as you create your lease. Before you turn over possession of your rental, make sure you've screened all tenants, have an executed Oregon lease agreement, and you've collected the entire security deposit and first month's rent. As you manage your rental, remember that we have over 400 property management forms, including state-specific forms. Visit easylandlordforms.com to start your tenant screening, create a lease agreement that's guaranteed to comply with all Oregon lease laws, and access property management forms.